to sew his animal skin clothing. We look at his cave paintings in France and Spain with amazement. And what struck me, these primitive men were capable of painting, interpreting what they saw realistically. What happened back then? We know that man was intelligent, that he had begun living in harmony with others. Scientists speak of the leap of intelligence, this turning point in the history of human development, but they can't explain it. There are other primitive paintings. In Australia, the rock paintings. Look at them. Is this the work of a primitive imagination? Or are they realistic interpretations of what they saw? The tribe of Aborigines whose ancestors made the drawings still live here in the Australian outback. Through their dancing and chanting, they tell a legend of the visit of a godlike creature, the story of Wandinja, goddess of the Milky Way. She came from outer space in her gleaming ship, brought wisdom and guidance, and then returned to the stars. Just to the north, in New Guinea, they tell of a flying god who has dominion over another Earth. These are some of their ritual masks. Deep in the Brazilian jungle, on the banks of the Rio Fresca, the Caiapós make their home. The borders of their world, this river and the jungle. Their lives today are as uncomplicated as those of their ancestors. Even today, the Caiapós chant this ancient legend. One day, Bep Corote appeared in the village. He was dressed in a bow, which covered him from head to foot. On his head, he wore a kop, a thunder weapon. Some of the people tried to do battle with the intruder, but their weapons were too weak. Each time they touched Bep Corote's clothing, they turned to dust. This warrior from outer space had to laugh at the fragility of these people who tried to fight him. To prove his strength to them, he took off his kop, his thunder weapon, pointed to a tree, and destroyed it. He lived among them for decades, and then left them forever. The foreigner wore a bow, the legend says. This suit, the ritual garment the Caiapós wear on their most sacred festivals, is still called a bow to this day. Strange. How did it evolve? Is it coincidence that this costume somehow is reminiscent of spacesuits worn by our astronauts? Yes, and even the way the dancer moves, like our astronauts walking on the moon. These pictures of a bow were taken in 1951. At that time, nobody knew, least of all the Caiapós, what spacesuits would subsequently look like. The first spaceflight around the Earth took place in 1961, 10 years after these pictures were made. In the ancient Mayan temple city of Palenque in Mexico, on this carved plaque, appears a curious figure. To some, it appears to be a warrior. To others, an astronaut at an instrument panel. And in that same ancient Mayan city, these century-old scriptures with illustrations that confuse and confound us to this day. Is that a portion of a costume or a piece of technical equipment we might recognize today? What are these figures? Who are they? Is that a headdress or a lamp? Further to the north, in the southwestern United States, I sought out a legend of the Hopi Indians. Today, the Hopis make their home in Arizona. Cliff dwellers, the Hopis were the only Indian tribe to build solid houses. And there are other differences. Their rock drawings of strange mechanized or stylized beings are far different from the drawings of other Indian tribes. Their legend tells of their wanderings as a tribe. They moved from island to island, and from there to the mainland. Whenever they left an island, it sank beneath the sea. Only a few Hopi warriors ever reached the mainland, and even they had lost all their weapons. It was then that strange creatures appeared out of the glowing sun, and these creatures brought them tools which were better than the ones they had used before. These creatures looked different from the humans of our world. They had incredible powers, and their magic was stronger than fire and lightning, and they called them Kachinas. The Hopi still make these dolls with their helmet-like heads. The son of the last Hopi chief explained to me the origin of the name and what the dolls represent to them. He said, in the Hopi language, the word Kachina means most respectable, spiritual, intelligent person. Kachinas were those beings who once helped the tribe in their struggle for life. One day they left us. However, they did promise to return. So as not to frighten our children when these strange beings do come back, several generations of Hopis have made their dolls which look like Kachinas. What is a legend? A myth? A fantasy? Is there a germ of truth, or is it fiction? Who are the ancient astronauts, if there were truly ancient astronauts, who inspired these legends? What did they look like? Like these figures from Ecuador? Like this Dogu figure from Japan? Like this man in Palenque? From the beginning of time, the heavens, the source of our legends, have held an incredible fascination for mankind. This ancient astronomical observatory of Stonehenge in England predates recorded history. The stars and our desire to study them, to find out more about their mysteries, have intrigued both primitive and modern man. One of the mysteries, still unanswered, is there life out there? Today, we study the heavens in a different way, as with this gigantic radio telescope of Arecibo in Puerto Rico. Its parabolic mirror antenna has a diameter of over 900 feet, 3 times the size of a football field. The sharpest ear in the world. It is capable of receiving signals from stellar systems thousands of light years away from our Earth. So far, we've heard sounds from our own galaxy. We know that our universe is not mute. The Milky Way hisses. Saturn growls. The sun sighs. We wait. We listen.